Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I want to do a few ones that are smaller, that don't necessarily have the longer back and forth associated with it. The one with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a little bit longer in regards to the length because I wanted the audience back and forth to give me their thoughts. I am conflicted on... Look, on most things, I am not of complete mind. Most things, I'm usually divided between this thing of how I feel about it, but with how I think about it. And I usually partition those things out into two ways. My feelings on Ocasio haven't changed in one iota. Or my support for her hasn't changed one iota. By the same token, there are no free passes. I'm done with the free passes. If you want to say that's being a purist, I don't think that's being a purist. I haven't thrown her to the weeds. But I am perfectly allowed to say, like anybody else, on the issues that they agree with her on versus one they disagree with her on. It's, yes, she has my support overall on this issue. I don't like the wobble. So it is what it is. Going further to that, or going to a different issue for the moment, something that's, and I do that because my other stream was cut short. We're having a thunderstorm here in Virginia, and my Wi-Fi and everything else has gotten wobbly, Wi-Fi and electricity. But let's go to somebody else. Most people who watch this channel, for any period of time, would know that I'm a chess player. I love the game. I played the game since I was a kid. I pushed my rating up to 2032. I'm nowhere near that rating now, meaning if you caught me on a day after, if you caught me after a coffee shop meeting, or if you caught me just on some random day in the park, I would not be the strength that I was when I was 2032, but not necessarily a pushover. Either way, I love the game. I used to study the game because you don't really get to 2032, at least I don't think you do, at least I didn't, without a little bit of learning the ropes of the people who play the game, learning the games that came before you. It's like with anything. If you were doing boxing, if any sport. Now, one of the people who were amazing during my day as I was growing up was one Mr. Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov was pretty fucking amazing from the standpoint of playing chess. One of the most complicated players that I've come across. And I'm even including Tal in that list. One of the most complicated players you would ever find to play the game. The man was amazing. Part of that had to do with his use of technology early on in the process from the standpoint of computers. Part of it was just raw brute skill. One of the things that people who read and pay attention to this knows is that Garry Kasparov is somewhat of an ego, and Garry Kasparov is prone to hissy fits. Well, Garry Kasparov has been getting a little bit more media attention these days as the Hawks has started to come out from the standpoint of Russia and the Russia-phobes. Donald Trump goes to Helsinki. Donald Trump essentially says, no, I'm not going to agree that we were hacked by Russia, that Russia jumped and attacked democracy by spear phishing that pulled factually true information out showing that the DNC was cheating Bernie Sanders. No, I don't acquiesce to that line of thinking per se. Now, people flipped out over this. How dare you not accept that your winning of the presidency wasn't done under your own steam? How dare you, sir? You need to repudiate the fact that you won that office. Repudiate your win. Repudiate it. Do it on the live stage. Do it with Putin watching. Tell the world that you didn't win on your own steam. Gravel and tell everybody how horrible and miserable you were able to get your win, to get you across the finish line. Tell Putin right now in front of the world. Debase yourself in regards to your win, beating the most qualified woman in the history of women. Now, no president in their right mind is going to go and repudiate their win. No president is going to say that they didn't win on their own steam, especially not a president named Donald Trump. Nor should he. Nor should he. They're on stage with 90% of the nuclear weapons. And this hypocritical, amazingly, profoundly hypocritical with a jetpack. Hypocritical on steroids with a coke chaser behind it. That's the level of hypocrisy that we're seeing on the world stage as the United States and the media. It's an act of war. It's 9/11. It's Neville Chamberlain. It's all of these words that are being thrown around, getting across the idea that this guy is somehow a traitor, or him not repudiating something that I would consider to be somewhat of a conspiracy theory. Treasonous. This is pretty fucking amazing. A hack, a spearphishing hack, or spearphishing, whatever you want to call it, a hacker leak. But information release, giving factually true information from the DNC that Hillary Clinton and the DNC was cheating Bernie Sanders has somehow become an attack on democracy itself. This is amazing. This is coming from the government that destroyed other governments, that has destroyed other governments, killing 1 million people in the process. In one, I don't know how many thousands were killed in the other. Hey, if you want, you can get your own slave. Courtesy of the last previous black president that was in office. And yet, they still perch their lips. They still bring long air out of their throats. And with foul breath, say one thing after the next about how horrible this is. How horrible this is. Even if I take them at their own word, even if I say that what you're saying is true, it is laughable. The presumption, the thing that you're using, this mechanism of anger that's being used is preposterous. That's what I'm getting at. Enter Garry Kasparov. Look at this. I'm ready to call this the darkest hour in the history of the American presidency. Let me know if you can think of any competition. Let me know if you can think of any competition. Even if you want to accept that Donald Trump not being hawkish and brutish and belligerent to Vladimir Putin is somehow debasing himself, somehow a betrayal. Say you're right. Say Putin has hooks in him. Say Donald Trump getting up there elevates the level of Putin to the world stage. He was already on the world stage. Even with Obama, he was on the world stage. But say it elevates him to the world stage. And say this is Donald Trump debasing himself in front of another leader of another country. Are you asking me, can I think of any competition to a person debasing himself with the American presidency? Yes, I can think of others, Garry Kasparov. Hey, how about the last guy that blew up and destroyed Libya, where you can now purchase your own slave from what NATO did in that country? What about that? What about that? What about George Bush killing 1 million people and destroying that part of the world? You have refugees streaming all throughout this other parts of the Middle East. And an argument can be made that the inception of what is considered to be ISIS started with George Bush screaming about something that wasn't true, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and essentially using the Constitution for toilet paper, passing the authorization of military force. Are you really telling me that even if what you're saying is true, that Donald Trump getting up there, debasing himself in front of Putin, if you want to call it that, is the worst thing that a president, or the worst thing that's ever happened to the American presidency? You gotta be pulling my goddamn leg. Are you kidding me? I can't believe that you play chess to any level of degree. You need to stick with chess, buddy, because what you're saying from the political space is preposterous. It's utterly amazing that you can tweet this with a straight face, and maybe you don't have a straight face as you're tweeting it. That's just in the last 2 presidencies. That's just the last 2. I'm pretty sure you can go back further. I mean, hey, putting in the strongman in Iran wasn't necessarily a great thing. I thought that was a pretty horrible thing. Look at the consequences of that. We are in a conflict right now, supposedly in the conflict with Iran. This theocrat that's in office that we consider to be this horrible, horrible, horrendous person, missing the point that the revolution was from somebody who we put in, a strongman dictator that we put in. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. But I'm using specific to the presidencies here in the recent memory because I don't want to necessarily go back too far from this. I mean, ultimately, when we're talking about the United States taking on the world stage, you can go back further from the standpoint of what we did in the Spanish-American War. You can go back to what we did in Vietnam. There are multiple things that you can go back to. What about what we did in South America? Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? Can I think of any other presidency? It's amazing that you can tweet this. Where's your shame? There are 1 million people on this planet just in the last 20 years, or there are 1 million people that are no longer on this planet in the last 20 years as the actions of one of the presidents in this country. There are people right now that have been tortured and broken, ripped apart, on camera based on the actions of a president breaking the law, flagrantly breaking the law. And the last president using drones to murder thousands. In some cases, the percentage was like 90% of the people being murdered were civilians. But Garry No Shame Kasparov, with his political agenda, gets out here and says nonsense. Stick to chess. Stick the chess. You're better off. I'll leave it at that, because you damn sure don't know what the fuck you're talking about from the standpoint of American politics. Thanks, guys.